They tried to silence him. They erased his name. But he rebuilt from nothing. He fought every algorithm. They tried again and failed. Now he's back, stronger. From blackout to spotlight, he's at the White House, at the top of his game. Franchi lives.
You are about to enter another dimension, the dimension of truth, unfiltered and uncensored. Welcome to the Raw Feed with Gary Franchi.
Welcome to the Raw Feed. I'm Gary Franchi, coming to you live from the heart of America. Unfiltered truth to millions on YouTube. Hit those donation links below. Every contribution powers our gear. Every contribution keeps the party going. Help me help you. Hit those donation links. YouTube channel memberships. Special acknowledgement in the fellowship. Your super chats keep me standing. Your Rumble rants fuel every round.
Say hello to super chats.
Spread the intel. Every repost extends our reach.
Super chats fuel this spectacle. Your Rumble rants give me strength.
24/7 members-only community, behind-the-scenes discussions.
Connect with fellow patriots.
My mama always said, life is like sharing the truth. Text this stream to your friends.
What if I told you the app is real? Download the Next News Network app. Android users, take the Google Play path. iPhone users, App Store awaits.
I was muted. Hey, that's me. It's Gary. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. 234 years ago today, on December 15th, 1791, America ratified the Bill of Rights. 10 amendments designed to protect the people from government tyranny. Freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, protection from unreasonable searches, the promise that power belongs to the people, not the unelected bureaucrats, not partisan prosecutors and certainly not politicians who believe they're above the law. And yet here we are in 2025, and every single one of those principles is under assault. Good evening. I'm Gary Franchi, and this is the Raw Feed. We've got Tom McCullough reporting from the freezing cold swamp itself. That's right, Washington, D.C. And folks, you want to talk about dedication? Tom's hotel caught on fire. The man is literally walking through smoke and flames to bring you the truth from the belly of the beast. That's the next news difference. And he's fine, by the way. Maybe a little cold, but while mainstream reporters file stories from their climate-controlled studios, Tom is boots on the ground in the D.C. winter where it matters. When we say go, where the story is, we mean it. Now, let me tell you what's happening in this country. In Brentwood, California, Hollywood's legendary Trump hater Rob Reiner and his wife Michele are dead, stabbed to death in their own home. Their 32-year-old son Nick is in custody, bail set at $4 million. A family tragedy by any measure. But before the crime scene tape was even up, the vultures descended. The left-wing outrage machine immediately blamed MAGA. No evidence, no investigation, just reflexive accusations against 75 million Americans. Meanwhile, they conveniently forgot that Rob Reiner spent years posting unhinged attacks against President Trump and anyone who supported him. In Minnesota, we already know about the billions of dollars in fraud, and I mean billions, and Governor Tim Walz has the audacity to blame Donald Trump. The fraud happened in his state under his watch with his party in control. And now we're learning enforcement was deliberately slowed because Democrat politicians were afraid of losing votes. Ilhan Omar is out there crying about her son being questioned by ICE for a few minutes while her constituents allegedly looted the Treasury. The double standard would be funny if it wasn't so corrupt. And our second favorite White House correspondent, of course. Who's your first? You pick. I love you, Tom. Tom has the explosive details on Tina Peters, the 68-year-old grandmother who's sitting in a Colorado prison cell right now. You see, President Trump issued her a federal pardon, a presidential pardon. And Colorado's response? They're refusing to let her go. Think about that. A state government is openly defying federal authority to keep a political prisoner locked up. Governor Jared Polis, the same man who let Venezuelan gang members take over apartment complexes, he's holding a whistleblower hostage. And Tom has the full story from the nation's capital right outside the West Wing. And the FBI just stopped a New Year's Eve massacre. 4 suspects connected to a radical pro-Palestinian terror cell were planning coordinated bombings across Los Angeles. And they were caught testing explosives. Meanwhile, at Brown University, a mass shooting leaves victims and officials can't explain why a campus covered in cameras has no footage. In Australia, 16 people murdered at a Jewish Hanukkah celebration. Legally owned guns, right? So much for their gun control utopia. And then there's the story they really don't want you to hear. The Titanic, 1912. 3 of the richest men in America, all opposed to a central bank, board the ship, and all 3 die. J.P. Morgan, who financed the vessel, cancels at the last minute. 18 months later, the Federal Reserve is born. They taught you that it was an iceberg, but what if it was something else entirely? So on this day, the Bill of Rights was signed and ratified. We're going to examine how every freedom those founders protected is being tested right now. Speech, arms, due process, the right to question your government without being thrown in prison. The establishment does not want you to see any of this, and that's exactly why we are going to show it to you. Because this is the Raw Feed. So let's get to work and welcome you to the show. Who's in the house tonight? Let's check in the chat room. Who's here? Toothy Ruthie already with a $10 bill. Happy Monday to you. Great to see you. Who else is in now? Let me see if there's other super chats perhaps that may have come in and slipped it. Oh, look at that. Scooby Dragon. $2. What's up? And then Northlander needs a Franchi Lives t-shirt. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. $10. Thanks for that. And then Curio 499. Good day, sir. What's the difference between a lawyer and a pit bull? A pit bull will only cost you an arm. Ugh. And then Toothy Ruthie. Thanks, guys. We're right out the gate. You guys are already throwing down the super chats and bringing us into a little bit closer to our goal. Let me see where we're just tabulating now. $26.99. So we're about 3/4 of the way, 1/4 of the way there. 3/4 to go. All right. Let's get into the news, Brian. We got some stuff to get at. Hollywood's legendary Trump hater and his wife are dead, stabbed in their own home. Their son's in handcuffs, and before the blood was even dry, the political machine kicked into gear. The left blamed MAGA, the right fired back, and somewhere in the middle of all this noise, two human beings lost their lives in the most brutal way imaginable. But here's what nobody's asking. Why is a family tragedy being turned into a political weapon, and what does it say about us that we can't even let the dead rest before we start pointing fingers? And the answer, well, it may just disturb you. You see, Rob Reiner was 78 years old. His wife, Michele, she was 68. They were found with stab wounds in their Brentwood home. Their son, Nick, just 32, is now sitting in a cell with bail set at $4 million. This is a family destroyed, a legacy shattered. And yes, Rob Reiner was a vocal critic of President Trump. He posted things that made a lot of us angry. He accused MAGA supporters of being dangerous. He wanted Trump locked up. That's all true. But here's what's also true. The man didn't deserve to die like this. Nobody does. His wife certainly didn't, and their son, whatever demons drove him to do this, has destroyed his own life along with theirs. The stakes here are not political, they're human. And the fact that we have to say that out loud tells you everything about where we are as a country. When tragedy becomes content, when death becomes a talking point, we've lost something very important. And some breaking news on the financial front as we wrap up 2025. It's a good time to slow down and reflect on the year. If there is one thing that we've all learned, it's that uncertainty isn't temporary. It's the world we live in now. Waiting for things to go back to normal isn't a plan, it's a gamble. And for over a decade, my friends at Noble Gold Investments have helped Americans protect themselves by diversifying their wealth with gold and silver. No one knows what 2026 will bring, but one thing's for sure, in an uncertain world, real wealth isn't digital, it's physical, it's lasting, and it's yours. Before the year ends, take one smart step towards a safer future and visit nextnewsgold.com and get your free wealth protection kit. That's nextnewsgold.com. Do not leave your future to chance. And call that number on the screen, because if you want to get one of these, 877-646-5347. Silver is skyrocketing. It's over $60 an ounce right now. So you can get 10 of these if you qualify. So make sure you call that number on the screen. So here's where it gets really ugly. Within hours of the news that was breaking, people on the left were blaming MAGA for the murders. No evidence and no connection, just pure political reflex. One account claimed that Trump supporters were responsible for, quote, nearly all U.S. bloodshed. Another said the MAGA cult most likely did this. Meanwhile, President Trump posted about Reiner's history of attacks against him. Some called it inappropriate. Others said he was simply telling the truth. But here's what everybody missed. The killer wasn't a Trump supporter. It wasn't a political extremist. It was their own son. This was a family matter that turned fatal. And the rush to weaponize it exposed something rotten on both sides. Here's what the president said today. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michele, reportedly due to anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michele rest in peace. That's what President Trump posted. And here, Dr. Dave was who quote tweeted the president. Even Donald Trump is acknowledging that Rob Reiner's murder was inevitably perpetuated by a maggot. Trump is blaming Reiner for aggravating MAGA by posting true statements, which is predictable misdirection from the sociopath in chief. Nearly all U.S. bloodshed is from MAGA. That's what Dr. Dave believes. In this particular account, Life Goes On, the MAGA cult most likely may be responsible for the deaths of Rob and Michele Reiner. He was a vocal critic of sleeping Donald witch hunt, hoax Trump, and the clowns in his administration. So that's some of the sentiment in the early morning hours when the news started to break. Paula writes, Rob Reiner was just one of many who put a target on Trump daily for over a decade now. Trump has the right to post whatever he wants about a man spewing lies about him 24/7 and who wanted him and MAGA in prison for life. This posted 5 hours ago from Elena Mastrangello. Not sharing this to disparage Reiner, but to remind you that when leftists demand you answer for Trump's posts, they're coming at you with full righteousness and feigned outrage. They didn't bat an eye at Rob's reaction to Rush Limbaugh. They don't care. Don't take the bait. Rob Reiner, headline, looks like from Breitbart. Rob Reiner attacks Rush Limbaugh as purveyor of disinformation day after his death. So Rob Reiner clearly had no qualms about attacking people who had passed. Rob Reiner thinks the reason Blue Sky has become vile, racist, and evil is because MAGA people have been on the social media platform. The only people I've seen promoting Blue Sky are far left types. Rob Reiner says MAGA scum have already wrecked Blue Sky. We're going to get to some more reaction, but let's go to the president, Tim Pool's reaction. Trump has personal reasons to be upset with Reiner, but he can do better, he says. This was not appropriate, he says. Rob was very gracious when Charlie was murdered. We can return that grace. Here's what President Trump said at the White House today.
Arrangement syndrome.
President, a number of Republicans have denounced your statement on Truth Social after the murder of Rob Reiner. Do you stand by that post?
Well, I wasn't a fan of his at all. He was a deranged person as far as Trump is concerned. He said he knew it was false. In fact, it's the exact opposite, that I was a friend of Russia, controlled by Russia. You know, it was the Russia hoax. He was one of the people behind it. I think he hurt himself in career-wise. He became like a deranged person, Trump derangement syndrome. So I was not a fan of Rob Reiner at all, in any way, shape, or form. I thought he was very bad for our country, yeah.
News slips, Mr. President. Leader Thune doesn't
He was very bad for our country. Tim Pool didn't like the sentiments of the president. CNN, President Trump took to social media to mock Rob Reiner after he and his wife were killed in their home. Here's the inside politics take.
A tortured and struggling, but I want to read how the President of the United Administration to be a consoler-in-chief, reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, of us expecting this president to be a consoler-in-chief, a uniter-in-chief, even anything close to that, those are long gone. That ship has long sailed. So the bar is low, like really low.
Well, I mean, realistically, if you see or read any of Reiner's posts, they weren't very friendly. So President Trump certainly had an axe to grind against Rob Reiner. Unfortunately, his son had apparently a knife to use. Sorry for the pun. I don't mean the dark humor, but sometimes it is what it is.
And this is a statement that came in so far below that bar, it's hard to even put words to it.
It's beyond the pale. Any 5-year-old can see that statement and know that's not an appropriate thing to say. You don't have something nice to say, you don't say it as like a rule that children are taught. But what it also shows me, and this isn't new information about Donald Trump, he can't resist. He is so addicted to media culture and the Hollywood thing and being a part of that story and playing in that space, that's irresistible to him. So his avenue of pursuit to swim in the stream of something that's already going to get a lot of attention. By the way, he's the president of the United States. He could get attention for anything he wants. And yet he knows, like, this is a stream he could swim in that will cause attention on him.
And of course, he decided to swim in that stream. And he has every right to. Like I said, he has an axe to grind against Rob Reiner. Sure. Here is Brianna Morello. This looks like an older clip of Rob Reiner. This was posted 5 hours ago. Looks like they were on the Piers Morgan show. Rob and Michele Reiner spent their final moments on this earth with the image of their own son allegedly stabbing them to death. We all know of someone struggling with the evils of addiction, and we pray that they will be saved. My heart breaks for their family. That's what Brianna Morello writes. So here, I guess this is a clip. This must be recent.
So many of us know someone struggling with a drug addiction, and we know about that fight when you're trying to save someone that you dearly love from addiction. You worry significantly. And Rob Reiner, although we disagree with his politics, will play clip 18 for you because it's a reminder that even though we disagree with him politically, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, he stood strongly against that. Take a listen.
You first heard about the murder of Charlie Kirk. What was your immediate gut reaction to it?
Well, horror, absolute horror. And I unfortunately saw the video of it, and it's beyond belief what happened to him, and that should never happen to anybody. I don't care what your political beliefs are. That's not acceptable. That's not a solution to solving problems. And I felt like what his wife said at the service, that the memorial they had, was exactly right. And totally, I believe, I'm Jewish, but I believe in the teachings of Jesus, and I believe in doing to others, and I believe in forgiveness. And what she said to me was beautiful, and absolutely, when she forgave his assassin. And I think that is admirable.
Now, obviously, that is something that we should all remember, is how Rob treated the Kirk family after the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk. We should have and extend that level of just humanity and sympathy.
And I think forgiveness too. Whatever inspired Rob Reiner to make all those nasty posts about Trump over the years, all you can do is pray for his soul, pray for his family, and forgive him, for he knows not what he does. What do we have this?
It's about Putin.
BJ, any chance of on a Trump type of thing, like a crime drama, perhaps?
Well, I'm working on a project, and I'll tell you, and I haven't told anybody about it.
Okay, here we go.
But I'm working on a project, and I haven't got the go ahead yet, but I'm working on a project called The Spy and the Asset. And it's all about Putin and Trump, and it takes them from their childhoods up to the point where they cross, and what happens to these two, and what happens to democracy as a result of this convergence. And I'm working with a really great writer named Ward Perry on it, who used to work for The Guardian, and really great writer. And we're going to go out to the various buyers after the 4th of July and see if anybody will be interested in it. I want to do it because, to me, it's like the first cut at history. Right. We're taking the first real cut at history with it.
I hope it gets made. It sounds compelling. I can see it. You've got such a great track record. And there are so many outlets now that it doesn't have.
Yeah, so apparently he was working on a film like that just before he passed away as well. The first archive of Rob Reiner's Twitter account, Sunshine State of Mind, says, I forgot how crazy it was, completely unhealthy. Let's see if we can zoom in on that. I'll try a different shot. Yeah, okay. DJT embraces white supremacy, uses the presidency to enrich himself, shuts out the media. Welcome to a nationalist totalitarian oligarchy. That was posted on November 22nd of 2016. Yeah, I'm sure that there's quite a bit more. Fox News has a series of clips of Rob Reiner, remembering him. Rob Reiner hated Trump and defamed him on a regular basis. Grumpy MAGA says Rob was ignorant to the facts and did everything he could to remove Trump from office. Here's just a small sample of his vitriol. I mean, when Fox says DJT colluded with the enemy, it's not a crime. The fight to save democracy is now an all-out war. U.S. stays strong. Wall Street Journal. Oh, you can't see. I'm so sorry. Wall Street Journal bombshell. First bit of concrete evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. All roads lead to Flynn. Fuse is long, but Donald Trump goes down. I mean, we could spend hours going through all of his different posts. I'm not sure what we're gonna gain from that. I mean, you and I all know just how vile he was. Let's listen to this take from April Silverman.
We're not going to believe this. Rob Reiner and his wife were brutally stabbed to death by their own son, Nick Reiner, who for many years has struggled with addiction and been homeless many, many times. My heart is broken. I don't care what his politics are. Conservatives would never cheer this on. I don't care what he thought of Donald Trump. This is so sick and upsetting. However, let me be clear. This is exactly the reason why I've gotten involved in politics in the first place. I'm trying to sound the alarm on this issue for the past 2 years. Rob Reiner is a multimillionaire. He's had a 5-decade career. With all the resources that he has, if he couldn't force this child to get sober and stay sober with all the amount of money and resources that they have at their disposal, can you imagine what is going on in our streets? This is what you're dealing with. This guy murdered his own parents. A boy brought up with a gold spoon. What's on the metro bus with you? What's walking behind you in the grocery market? You have no idea. That's why these policies are so horrific. There's nothing tolerant about allowing mentally ill and drug addicts on the street. You just give them debit cards. They don't have to get off the street. You don't force them to get help. They're allowed to stay and identify as whatever they want. That's how people get chased with machetes. And that's how we hear story after story. And to the gun control people, you don't need a gun. There are other weapons, clearly. You don't need access. This is why it's so scary. We have the loony bin, the cuckoo's nest, open. You open the prisons, you open the mental institutions, and they're all in the street waiting for you. This is very, very scary. They, with all their security and all their money, I'm petrified for us. And I'm really scared for New Yorkers even more. Most Angelenos drive and don't take public transportation, and I feel terrible for the ones that do. New Yorkers, I'm really worried about you guys. Look what happens on the trains in Charlotte, North Carolina, all these places. You don't know who these people are. They're mentally ill. Sorry you're mentally ill, but you got to be locked up. I don't want you on my streets. I don't believe in this reform. I don't believe in any of this. They're not well. So giving them access to clean needles and drugs and debit cards and...
Yeah, I mean, she's making some points there for sure. But we have some more points to get to. Here it is when the news broke.
Were able to take in handling the investigation. They worked throughout the night on this case and were able to take into custody Nick Reiner, a suspect in this case. He was subsequently booked for murder and is being held on $4 million bail.
Police in Los Angeles with that update moments ago, confirming Rob Reiner's 32-year-old son Nick is now in police custody after the legendary director and his wife were found dead yesterday in their Los Angeles home. Police say Nick Reiner has been booked on murder charges and is being held on a $4 million bail. Tommy, I come to you first. A lot of tragedy emanating around the world right now, and this in particular hits home for a lot of people that were big fans of Rob Reiner's movies that were so warm and heart forward and were all about the connection between people. And now this
in handling the investigation,
let's see what else we have here. Let's see, we covered some of that already. Some of the stuff I just don't want to play. I don't think it's going to really add to the conversation. But Tim Pool usually has some good points here.
That should never happen to any of it, and it's not acceptable service. I believe.
Problems. You know, if we all just agree, man, but this is what America is supposed to be like. It's supposed to be that we disagree. We have to disagree. The disagreement is how we actually solve the problems. You know, if we all just agreed on everything, we'd all walk off a cliff like lemmings. Except Disney faked that, apparently. But you get the point. We'd all be jumping off bridges and just saying, like, look, everything, you know, we have to disagree. The question is, to what extent are we going to disagree? Are we going to disagree to the point where we're beating each other, where people are getting stabbed or shot, and it's getting this crazy? People have certainly lost their minds. And I believe the internet is largely responsible for it.
Oh, yeah, for
People
sure.
are isolating into deep bubble pockets.
Absolutely.
In the far corners of the internet, they're believing insane things for insane reasons. People are making AI videos. We just had a shooting in Australia, and people are making AI photographs so it looks like it was staged. And then they're presenting it as it's very clever, actually. It's very clever. There's a photo of one of the victims.
Well, we don't need to get into that, but you heard him. He said it best. We have to rediscover how to disagree while still getting along. Rob Reiner hated everything that Trump stood for. He made that clear every single day. And a lot of people hated him right back. But hatred on social media didn't kill Rob Reiner. His own son did. And the fact that thousands of people rushed to blame politics before the bodies were even cold tells you that we've forgotten how to be human first and partisan second. That is the real tragedy right here. So look, I'm not going to pretend that I agreed with Rob Reiner on anything. The man had Trump derangement syndrome as bad as anyone in Hollywood. He wanted us silenced, censored, and locked away, but I'm also not going to dance on his grave. That's not who we are. 2 people are dead, a family destroyed, a son will likely spend the rest of his life in prison. This is a human tragedy, and it should be treated as one. The fact that the left immediately blame MAGA without evidence shows you exactly how broken our discourse has become. They don't care about the truth. They care about narrative. And we have to be better than that. We can acknowledge someone was wrong about everything and still recognize that murder is murder. So here's my question for the comment section. Should political figures be held accountable for the division they create, and how? Let us know. Let's have a conversation in the comments below. And grab your next news gear at the merch shop that's linked in the description. Okay, moving right along. Looks like we got James Fay dropping $5. Happy holidays, N3 Patriots. Thank you. James and Fran dropping $2.50. Thank you so much for that. We're now at $34.49. Just a little bit closer to our goal this evening. Moving right along into our next topic, we do have to cover this. Oh, someone finally recognized my glasses. Anna Todd. You recognize the new glasses. I sometimes I don't always see the comments, so maybe people have noticed before, but I started wearing them. My other glasses are still right here. Don't worry. They're still here. But they always have this tendency to slide down my nose. My nose always gets, I don't know why, like my nose, it gets really oily all the time. So that like they just want to slide down and I can't stand it. So these actually stay on my face better. 2 doggies dropping $2. What's up? Thank you so much for that. We're now at $36.49 in our quest for our goal tonight. Let's move right along. Let's get to the next topic, Brian. Because, well, Omar is not in prison yet. Ilhan Omar's son gets stopped by ICE. Questioned. Released. No charges, no incident, and she runs to the cameras screaming persecution. But here's what she doesn't want to talk about. Billions of dollars allegedly stolen from federal programs in her own state, her own district, on her watch. A scandal so massive that an internal memo reportedly told prosecutors to back off because politicians feared losing votes. Now she's calling the questions creepy and disturbing. You know what's actually disturbing? The double standard. Now, this is not a small-time scam. We're talking about billions in Medicaid fraud, food aid theft, federal programs designed to help people in need, allegedly looted while Minnesota's leaders looked the other way. And Governor Tim Walz is doing what he does best, blaming Donald Trump for a scandal that happened in his state under his leadership with his party in total control. But the real heat is on Ilhan Omar. She's out there on television complaining her son was briefly questioned by immigration officers. He showed his papers, he was released, end of story. But she framed it as oppression. Meanwhile, the ever colorful Senator John Kennedy confirmed an internal Minnesota Attorney General memo allegedly showing that enforcement against the fraud was deliberately slowed because politicians feared backlash from Somali voters. Equal justice abandoned for political survival. That's the real scandal that Omar does not want you to see. And some breaking news on the weight loss front. While politicians like Ilhan Omar deflect and billions disappear from federal programs, Americans are losing faith that anyone in power is looking out for them. But you can still look out for yourself. That is why I trust BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate from trimwithgary.com. While corrupt officials get fat on your tax dollars, this natural formula helps trigger hunger-controlling signals without peptides, without needles, prescriptions, or dangerous side effects. It promotes fullness, reduces cravings, and supports real fat loss over muscle loss. Right now, get 40% off at trimwithgary.com plus a 60-day guarantee and free shipping. Every order that BioTrust donates a meal to hungry children through NoKidHungry.org. Over 5 million meals have been donated so far. Take back control at trimwithgary.com. So it gets worse. A UN investigation found the exact same fraud pattern with Somali-linked organizations in Sweden. 70% of food aid stolen, ghost beneficiaries on the rolls, fake NGOs created to siphon funds. $100 million gone. Now people are asking, is this the same playbook that was running in Minnesota? Omar calls that question racist. She said we should be monitoring and profiling white men instead. And that's the actual quote. So when scrutiny hits her community, it's persecution. When she calls for profiling others, it's policy. One set of rules for Ilhan Omar, another set for the rest of America. And the media lets her get away with it every single time. Here it is. Here's Tim Walz blaming President Trump for the Minnesota Somali fraud scandal that happened on his watch. Listen.
Blame Trump, play. They are still forgetting.
We're now investigating Minnesota's massive Somali fraud scandal.
This is not brand new, and it's been being worked on.
This clown is blaming Trump for a massive scandal.
This is out of the words of a true beta. At the end of the day, if you're going to blame President Trump for everything, even the ills of your own state and the mismanagement of those medical funds, let's be honest here, this is your fault. And this is Ilhan Omar's fault. This is the federal government. It's also the state government failing Minnesota. And he sat there and really admitted it. And the idea that you're going to bring Trump in this, and President Trump has been the president for about 10 months now, is pretty ridiculous. This has been going on far before President Trump even got into office. This is their only playbook. They are still on the blame Trump playbook. And what they are still forgetting is that just 1 year ago, we won the House, we won the Senate, he won the presidency overwhelmingly, and they are still reeling as to how they're going to move forward. Again, this ship is rudderless. They have no leadership, and the only thing that they could do is blame Trump, even for their ills and for their own missteps.
We're now investigating.
Yeah. Billions are stolen, blame Trump. Here's Ilhan Omar saying it's disturbing and creepy that Trump is highlighting the fraud.
And it is really disturbing and creepy to have the President of the United States be obsessed with you and those who share your ethnicity. I know that he is deflecting from the failures of his presidency. He'd rather scapegoat us. It is really disturbing.
He'd rather scapegoat us. No, how about he'd rather have you all arrested for billions in theft? Here's where Ilhan Omar says that we should be monitoring white men.
Fear, they say. A lot of conservatives in particular would say that the rise in Islamophobia is a result not of hate, but of fear, a legitimate fear, they say, of quote-unquote jihadist terrorism, whether it's Fort Hood or San Bernardino or the recent truck attack in New York. What do you say to them?
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. And so if fear was the driving force of policies to keep America safe, Americans safe inside of this country, we should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
A lot of and the irony here is I believe she's actually married to a white man. That was after the marriage to her brother. The Senate Democrats, Tim Burchett writes, blocked our bill to stop funding the Taliban with your money. Tim Burchett dropped a bomb. Senate Democrats blocked a bill that would have cut off U.S. funding to the Taliban and corrupt NGOs funneling money to terrorist hands. According to Burchett, the U.S. is indirectly sending up to $40 million per week to Taliban-controlled Afghanistan with zero accountability. That money straight into the pockets of the same people we spent 20 years and 2,000 American lives fighting. Elon told him the U.S. had dumped close to $1 trillion into those bottomless pits of corruption. So why block a bill to stop it? Good question. Ask your senator where their loyalties are. Let's listen to this moment from Tim Burchett. Looks like he's in his car doing an interview with Fox.
Completely out of control. Phone call. I had a phone call with Secretary Rubio meeting with him. This deal with the Somalis over in Minnesota is just the tip of the iceberg, ma'am. It is, it's completely out of control. We are sending currently $40 million a week to the Taliban in Afghanistan. There's around 1,000 of these NGOs that are created, and what happens is some billionaire Soros-esque kind of person puts money in an account, $1 million. Some unelected bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. sees that, and it's got a great name like, Feed the Starving Children or something. So, and they start funding them. Elon Musk told me, and I have no reason to doubt it, we probably put close to $1 trillion of your tax dollars into these things. And then it flows into the pockets of terrorists, and ma'am, they will hate us for free. We don't need to be paying the Taliban $40 million a week. But the president's aware of it. And last week, the Senate Democrats blocked the bill on the Senate floor, if you can imagine that. And you got to wonder where their loyalties are. They don't care if they burn this dadgum country down. All they want is to get their money to fund, because their wives and or their girlfriends, or possibly both, are probably employed by some of these NGOs. We could better start watching this. If we're sending $40 million a week to the Taliban, dadgum, and the Somalis are ripping us off over there, it's all over the country. We better start paying attention.
Yeah, it is a tip of the iceberg. When you think about what they just uncovered in Minnesota, where else is it happening? How widespread is it? How are the methods being employed in Minnesota being replicated in other parts of the nation? Bill Mitchell writes, this is criminal blackmail. Tim Walz, forced by Somali insiders, including Ilhan Omar, to steal billions from Minnesota taxpayers just to hold on to Democrats' power. Walz was blackmailed by a group of politically connected Somali criminals, including Ilhan Omar, to embezzle approximately $1 billion in public funds, the total potential reaching $8 billion, making it the single largest blackmail operation in United States history. Straight theft from hard-working Americans. And here's a clip he attached with Jesse Waters. Let's check in with this.
The Somali scammers. We've known Tim Walz for less than a week, and we've already found out he let rioters burn down cities, lied about his military service, crushed small businesses, and turned Minnesota into a child sex change sanctuary. But that's not it. Tonight, we're dropping another Walz bombshell. As governor, Walz let a gang of politically connected Somali fraudsters steal $250 million of your money. It was the single biggest COVID scam in American history. During the pandemic, the government was just giving out money left and right. A nonprofit in Minnesota, Feeding Our Future, got $250 million to send food to needy kids. Sounds good, right? Here's the problem. Almost none of it was used for food. The Somali scammers blew our cash on real estate, cars, extravagant get trips. We have wire transfers that show thousands going to car dealerships. $160,000 went to some company in China. And $500,000 was sent to Kenya to buy an apartment. A $500,000 apartment in Kenya is probably a palace. But our tax dollars weren't just used on goodies. The politicians got a taste too. Ilhan Omar got thousands of dollars in donations from some of the scammers. These guys weren't criminal masterminds. It was sloppy. When they cooked the books, they made up names of their fake clients. They came up with these names. Are you ready? Unique Problem. Friday Donations. How'd nobody catch that? Well, early on, Walz's administration thought it looked a little suspicious, so they froze the funds. Then the Somalis sued and called Walz racist, so he kept letting them steal. They didn't bother to crack into the bank accounts or issue subpoenas. Walz just put his hands in the air and said, I'm not racist. Take whatever you want. Minnesota has a huge Somali population. You can't get called racist and expect to win another election there. Walz even gave one of the fraudsters the Minnesota Outstanding Refugee Award. 3 years later, she was indicted. No thanks to Walz, the feds came in after he ignored the problem for years. During the trial, the Somalis tracked down a juror and dropped off a Hallmark bag on their doorstep, filled with 120 G's, and a little note saying there's more to come if she acquits. This all happened under Walz's nose. He had every chance to stop it and failed. Just like he failed to protect his city during the riots, and just like he failed his unit when he retired before deployment. This is the guy Kamala Harris chose as her number 2.
Unbelievable. The house of cards is collapsing. It's only a matter of time before this really... right now, we're talking about it. We know there's investigations, deep investigations. Stephen Miller told us this last week. And what we're looking at is what's happening on the surface. But the investigations are happening behind the scenes. So you know that Ilhan and Tim Walz are sweating right now because the walls are closing in. The walls. Get it?
Calling him.
Yes.
Here's Ilhan complaining about her son getting stopped.
And, typically my son goes to Friday prayers with his friends, and then they all go and eat at their favorite restaurant in Cedar Riverside. And I knew, I saw videos earlier in the day from Representative Mahmoud Noor and others that the ICE agents were in Cedar. And so I kept calling to see,
Calling him,
yes,
your
calling
son.
my son to see if he was okay, if he had any run-ins with him. And he wasn't answering. And eventually that night I did get a chance to talk to him, and I had to remind him just how worried I am, because all of these areas that they're talking about are areas where he could possibly find himself in. And they are racially profiling. They are looking for young men who look Somali that they think are undocumented. My son was born here, so was the young man that they harassed. And he did say, they did come into the masjid while he was there praying. They didn't do anything.
They came into the mosque.
Yes, and they left. And then, yes, he did see them at the restaurant. They just walked around and kind of left. But yesterday, after he made a stop at a Target, he did get pulled over by ICE agents, and once he was able to produce his passport ID, they did let him go.
So your son went to Target last night with his passport.
Mm-hmm. He always carries it with him.
In case he gets pulled over.
Yes.
Which he did by ICE.
Yes.
So playing the victim, but no mention of the massive amounts of fraud. Here is Senator Kennedy confirming the internal Minnesota AG memo.
Feeding Our Futures went to the state and said, if you stop giving us this money, we're going to call you racist and we're going to sue you. And you don't want to be in the news. Now, here's what, and you say, well, why didn't the employees do something? They did. They told the people higher up, the people with the flags in their office. And you know what they did? Nothing. You know why? Well, here's what the legislative auditor in Minnesota said. He said that the threat of litigation and the negative press affected how the state politicians use their regulatory power. And here's what a fraud investigator in the Attorney General's office said. She said, there is a perception that, I'm quoting now, that forcefully tackling this issue would cause political backlash from the Somali community, which is a core voting bloc for Democrats. Feeding Our Futures went to the state.
There's the memo in black and white. Protecting them all. The exact fraud happening by Somali immigrants in America also occurred by Somali immigrants in Sweden. Check this out.
An American story. Hey America, while you're debating whether Ilhan Omar married her brother for citizenship and watching every question about fraud deflected as hate or racism framing, This isn't just an American story. Did you know the same thing happened in Sweden? Somali-born MPs and community leaders there were caught in schemes siphoning over 100 million from schools, welfare, and public programs. In Minnesota, prosecutors say 250 million meant to feed hungry American children was stolen, the largest welfare fraud in US history. Same pattern, same community networks, same playbook, and everyone insists these are isolated incidents. So how do two countries 4,000 miles apart end up with nearly identical fraud networks led by people from the exact same place? To understand that, you have to understand Somalia. You see, Somalia hasn't had a functioning government since 1991. What filled the void? Clans, militias, warlords, and aid cartels. Aid theft isn't on the margins, it is the system. A UN investigation found diversion in all 55 displacement camps surveyed. Multiple reports documented up to 70% of food aid stolen or diverted. Investigations from 2010 to 23 repeatedly showed aid convoys hijacked, taxed, or resold, ghost beneficiaries, fake NGOs created to siphon funds. Money doesn't flow through ministries, it flows through clans. Loyalty networks are greater than governance, and clan leaders control distribution lists, ghost beneficiaries, and paperwork. Add the Hawala system. Brilliant for diaspora remittances, but perfect for untraceable money flows. Billions move outside Western oversight. This is Somalia's operating system. Survival economics built on exploitation, ghost paperwork, intimidation, and aid theft. Now drop that system into Western welfare states built on trust, self-reporting, and paperwork, and it scales. Diaspora networks recreated familiar structures. Minnesota wasn't ready for clan-based accounting. Sweden wasn't built to track Hawala-style flows, and social workers weren't trained to audit war economy fraud. Minnesota's scandal wasn't a mistake, it was a blueprint. Sweden's wasn't random. Same methods, different country, bigger budgets. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Minnesota looks identical to old UN scandals in Somalia. Ghost children, ghost beneficiaries, fake signatures, fake invoices, fake food, real money. Only difference? In Somalia, the money came from aid. In Minnesota and Sweden, it comes from taxpayers. When a survival economy built on aid theft enters welfare systems, fraud isn't accidental, it's predictable.
Yeah, it's predictable. Ilhan Omar says ICE allegedly pulled over her son and released him after showing proof of citizenship. Let's see. Ilhan Omar says the highly credible accusation she married her brother is a national embarrassment.
And everybody knows I came to the United States at the age of 12, gained my citizenship at the age of 17, and I am an elected representative in the House of Congress, and so the House of Representatives in Congress. And so for me, you know, I look at it as a display of his ignorance, and I see it as a national embarrassment that he continues to say those kind of things, even though he does know what the truth is. Everybody knows.
We all know what the truth is. Rapid Response writes, Ilhan Omar says the highly credible accusations that she married her brother, which she's never disproved, are a national embarrassment. She's right, just not in the way she thinks.
I look at...
So here's the question nobody in the mainstream media will ask. If $1 billion was stolen from federal programs in any other community, would enforcement be slow to protect politicians? Would the accused get to play victim on cable news? Would questions about the fraud be called creepy and disturbing? You know the answer. Ilhan Omar knows the answer. And that's exactly why she's working overtime to change the subject. But the facts are out, the memo exists, and the American people are watching. You see, Ilhan Omar wants you to believe she's the victim here. Her son was questioned by ICE for a few minutes and released. That's her crisis. Meanwhile, billions allegedly vanished from programs meant to feed the hungry and care for the sick. An internal memo reportedly told prosecutors to stand down because Democrats feared losing votes. And when anyone asks about it, Omar calls it creepy. She calls it disturbing. She says Trump is deflecting. No, ma'am, you're deflecting. The fraud happened in Minnesota under Democrat leadership in districts you represent. The American people deserve answers, not accusations. They deserve accountability, not victimhood performances. The story isn't going away no matter how loud she screams. So here's my question for the comments. Do you think that Ilhan Omar should be immediately deported for her role in this scandal? Yes or no? Sound off in the comments, and you can support independent journalism by grabbing some gear from our merch shop. You'll find it linked in the description. All right, no new super chats to speak of at the moment. You know the rules. If you go ahead and present your super chat, it will be read on screen. Oh, yes, we got to get to Tom's report. Let's get into this, Brian. I think you got to do something, don't you? You got to deport her. She'd already be gone. Jail deported. You guys, I don't need to ask you guys. You guys know the answer. I'm ready when you are, buddy. Okay. Standing by. Standing by.
How dare you? You said people gonna die?
A presidential pardon has been issued. The paperwork is signed, and a 68-year-old grandmother is still sitting in a Colorado prison cell. Tom McCullough has been tracking this story from Washington, D.C., and what he's uncovered is stunning. President Trump pardoned Tina Peters. Her lawyers went to pick her up, and Colorado said no. They're actually refusing to release her. A state government openly defying a federal pardon. And if they can do this to her, they can do it to anyone. And that should terrify every single American who's watching right now. Tina Peters was the Mesa County clerk who did something the establishment couldn't forgive. She preserved evidence. Election data that Colorado officials wanted wiped. And for that, she was prosecuted, convicted, and sentenced to 9 years in a state prison. 9 years. For a county clerk. Meanwhile, violent criminals walk free on cashless bail. Drug dealers get probation. But question an election? You get nearly a decade behind bars. And now President Trump has issued her a federal pardon. Her attorney went to retrieve her, and the state of Colorado refused. They're hiding behind jurisdiction claims, saying a federal pardon doesn't apply to state charges. Supporters are demanding federal marshals intervene. The Bureau of Prisons reportedly requesting her transfer, citing unjust conditions. And still she sits in a cell. Governor Jared Polis, the same man President Trump just called weak and pathetic, would rather keep a grandmother locked up than acknowledge federal authority. And some breaking news for your family's security. As states like Colorado prove they'll defy federal authority to punish political enemies, you need to be prepared for anything. And that's why you need this Christmas to be going to preparewithgary.com. My Patriot Supply has an incredible buy one, gift two special. It's happening right now. Buy one 4-week emergency food kit for yourself and get 2 1-week kits absolutely free. They make perfect gifts for anyone on your list who values self-reliance. When government can't be trusted to follow its own laws, having emergency food stored away just makes sense. In this deal, you'll be protecting yourself and giving meaningful gifts to loved ones. This offer is only available for the holiday season, for the Christmas season, so don't wait. Go to preparewithgary.com right now. And with no further ado, let's go to Tom McCullough, who is our White House correspondent. He's outside the White House right now, and I was speaking with him on the phone. It was bitter, cold, and his hotel even caught on fire, if you believe that, on top of it. But he's fine. Let's go to the report.
Hey guys, Tom McCullough, White House correspondent for the Next News Network. And President Donald Trump is drawing national attention to what he calls a dangerous failure of leadership in Colorado, where violent foreign gangs are operating freely while an elected official is sitting behind bars. And Trump's message is simple. When politicians protect criminals and punish whistleblowers, the public always pays the price. This is about security, justice, and accountability. And at the center of President Trump's criticism is Tren de Aragua, a violent Venezuelan criminal organization now operating inside of the United States. And federal authorities link the gang to drug trafficking, human smuggling, extortion, and contract killings. And what began inside of Venezuela's prison system expanded rapidly as border enforcement collapsed under the Biden and Obama administrations. Colorado became one of the gang's primary strongholds. And law enforcement has confirmed that Tren de Aragua activity inside of cities like Aurora, Colorado, where gang members were tied to apartment complex takeovers, intimidation of residents, and violent crime. Federal indictments in 2025 charged dozens of individuals connected to the gang for firearms offenses, trafficking operations, and murder for hire plots.
The poorly run state of Colorado with a governor who's incompetent, and frankly with a governor that won't allow our wonderful Tina to come out of a jail, in a high-intensity jail, because she caught people cheating on an election, and they said she was cheating. She wasn't cheating. She went over, she looked at one of the election scams going on, and because she did that, they put her in jail for 9 years. The governor of Colorado is a weak and pathetic man who was run by Tren de Aragua, the criminals from Venezuela, took over sections of Colorado, and he was afraid to do anything. But he puts Tina in jail for 9 years because she caught people cheating. And when she walked over and got involved in it, they said she was cheating. She wasn't cheating. She caught people cheating on the election, 2020, along with a lot of other people that cheated on that election. You'll see that coming out more and more.
Despite mounting evidence, Colorado leadership failed to act decisively, and sanctuary city-style policies limited cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. ICE detainers were ignored, dangerous individuals were released back into communities. And at the same time, state authorities aggressively prosecuted Tina Peters, the former Mesa County clerk who questioned election systems after the 2020 vote. And Peters took steps to preserve election data before scheduled software updates, believing transparency was essential. Prosecutors charged her under state law, where she was ultimately convicted and sentenced to 9 years in prison. And supporters argue Peters was not prosecuted for criminal intent, but punished for challenging institutional power. And President Trump has repeatedly said that her case represents the weaponization of the justice system against political dissent. And this contrast defines, Trump's argument pretty well. Criminal gangs are tolerated, yet election integrity advocates are crushed? I mean, tell me how that's even close to being fair. And since the returning to office, Trump has prioritized border enforcement, deportations, and dismantling the transnational criminal terrorist networks. His warning to governors is clear: failure to protect citizens will not be ignored. So this moment is larger than one state. It's about whether America defends its borders, enforces its laws, and protects those who question powerful institutions, or whether weakness in politics are going to come first. I wonder how that's going to go in most blue states, guys. Anyways, President Trump has chosen confrontation over complacency, and the consequences of that choice already unfolding. Hey guys, Tom McCullough, White House correspondent for the Next News Network. And
Thank you for that report, Tom. You see, here's what makes this even more explosive. Trump didn't just pardon Peters, he went after Polis directly. He called the governor weak, pathetic. He said Polis is run by Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang that took over apartment complexes, as you just heard Tom talk about, we've been reporting on. Trump pointed out the Polis was too afraid to stop foreign criminals, but had no problem jailing an American grandmother for 9 years. Bannon's War Room now calling for Kash Patel and federal agents to physically go get her. Supporters say she's a political prisoner being held by Democrats for preserving evidence of the 2020 election. And her attorney, who graduated military academy with Trump back in '64, says the pardon must be honored. So the standoff is clearly far from over. Now, let's go and check in. This is, we're going to get to Tina's remarks. I want to jump in and find the remarks we have. Here's President Trump.
Incompetent. The poorly run state of Colorado with a governor who's incompetent, and frankly with a governor that won't allow our wonderful Tina to come out of a jail, in a high-intensity jail, because she caught people cheating on an election, and they said she was cheating. She wasn't cheating. She went over, she looked at one of the election scams going on, and because she did that, they put her in jail for 9 years. The governor of Colorado is a weak and pathetic man who was run by Tren de Aragua, the criminals from Venezuela, took over sections of Colorado, and he was afraid to do anything. But he puts Tina in jail for 9 years because she caught people cheating. And when she walked over and got involved in it, they said she was cheating. She wasn't cheating. She caught people cheating on the election, 2020, along with a lot of other people that cheated on that election. You'll see that coming out more and more.
Yeah, we all know what happened in 2020. And then we weren't even allowed to talk about it. Trump eviscerating the governor. Weak and pathetic man. Is this the same clip?
Jail, Colorado, the poorly run state of Colorado, with a governor who's incompetent. And frankly, with a governor that won't allow our wonderful Tina
to come out. That, my bad. But that was the president eviscerating the Colorado governor. Tej Gill, Peters has been federally pardoned. Send in the
Get
feds.
her out of jail. Tina Peters has been federally pardoned for preserving evidence in a 2020 election that was stolen. Send the feds in and get her out of jail forcefully if needed. That's what Kash Patel and Dan Bongino need to do. They need to go in there and show up with force and get her out of the Colorado jail system, because she is a political prisoner held by the Democrats for preserving evidence in the 2020 election. What she did was legal. She preserved evidence in a crime, and she's been federally pardoned by the President of the United States. So that FBI and the U.S. Marshal Service need to go and get her out of jail and use force if necessary.
Tina Peters in prison for exposing Jenna Griswold's crimes of election fraud in Colorado. The wrong person's behind bars. Send in the marshals. Here's more from Real America's Voice.
Those bios subpoena Mike Frontera, Dominion.
So this is Tina Peters, obviously on a phone in prison.
Dominion's lawyer, but they found a way to not let us have our witnesses. What Jenna did, though, that since at least June, those BIOS passwords, 670 of them, from 63 counties out of the 64 counties in Colorado, have been on the public website for the Secretary of State, which means they were out there for anybody to grab.
Anyway.
She should be locked up, and they should throw away the key and let me loose.
Yeah, we need a prisoner swap.
Yeah, for sure.
So you think that this election in Colorado is definitely compromised because of the leaked passwords?
Oh, always. I mean, in Mesa County, they were finding fraudulent ballots. They were finding the same person was signing the ballot envelopes, and they brushed it off like it was nothing. And as a matter of fact, what Jenna Griswold did with the passwords, she knew while I was going through the trial that was out there and did nothing.
So those passwords were leaked out there during your trial before your sentencing?
They were out there since June, but she knew about it and didn't tell the clerks about it. And now she's apologizing to the clerks. She should apologize to the American people, or at least the people in Colorado. But there are other passwords besides just for Colorado, I've heard, for the United States in there for Dominion machines.
So you think some of our other elections in other states could be compromised because of leaked passwords for the Dominion machines?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what's going on with the cartel in Arizona and Michigan.
I love you, but we got to get you out of prison, girl. We got to get you out of prison. We got to get you out of prison. Let's free Tina Peters.
Free Tina Peters, indeed. And here is Jenna Griswold, Colorado Secretary of State. Quote, "It's now a felony to access voting equipment without authorization, and we caught someone." Tina Peters.
Colorado. Access in an unauthorized basis voting equipment. And we've caught someone, Tina Peters, who is now serving 9 years of imprisonment because she tried to mess around with voting equipment in the state of Colorado.
What are you going to do if there are troops on the street at polling places?
It's unfortunate that we have to plan for these scenarios, but as Secretary Benson of Michigan said, we had already planned for these scenarios in 2020. A lot of the worst case scenarios that you can think of, Democratic secretaries of state have been planning contingencies since 2019 in preparation for the 2020 election. Look, Donald Trump and his allies are more sophisticated. Trump tried to steal the election in 2020 through lies. Didn't work. He then incited the insurrection. It didn't work. Him and his MAGA allies have learned from their failures. But we're more sophisticated also. The American people are ready to go. We need the American people to stay in this fight. This isn't Republican versus Democrat. This is folks who believe in rule of law, in democracy, and our election, standing firm against this assault on our nation. I'm staying in this fight. I'll always fight to protect our democracy. That's a large part why I'm running for Attorney General in Colorado.
Yeah. She's the same one that leaked all the passwords.
She is punishing us. She's weaponizing her office against an elected official who is doing exactly what we elected her to do, and that is protect us. So please help me welcome my friend and an amazing patriot who is doing exactly what she should be doing in protecting and defending the vote. Clerk and Recorder Tina Peters. Thank you.
Clearly, this was before she was incarcerated.
When I started having citizens come to me and tell me that something didn't seem right in our local city council elections, something didn't seem right in our county from years ago to the 2020 election, and they wanted answers. And I said, you know what? If there's a there, we'll find it. And I've made that pledge to the citizens of Mesa County and all over Colorado that the people elected me. Not the Secretary of State. She has come into my office several times already in the last 2 years since I've been the elected official, because I am a Republican, I'm a conservative, and she's not. And she weaponizes her position to attack people that disagree with her. And so my son, who was a Navy SEAL for 9 years, a lot of that blood runs through our veins. Tragically, I lost him 4 years ago in a very tragic accident on duty. And but you know what? When you're a cancer survivor and you've gone through losing a 27-year-old son, there's not much people can do to you.
That's right.
Right? So when the people came to me and they said, can you help us? Can you help us find something? And I said, if you bring the information to me, I'll look at it. And I think that's what we all should do, right? Don't just turn a blind eye and say, well, I believe this or I believe that, but really look at it. And because of that, I've been persecuted. They've tried to take over my elections office because Mesa County election Mesa County is on the western slope of Colorado, and we are the last bastion of freedom in Colorado. So we would be a big jewel in our governor and our Secretary of State's crown to take over my office and control the way you vote. How do you like that?
At least the outcome of that vote, right, Dr. Frank? Yes.
So we have listened. I've listened to people. They send me things all over, and I've looked at it objectively. And there's some discrepancies there that I cannot deny. And I tell people, I say, I can't unsee some of these things. If I'm going to be honest with the people in Mesa County and in Colorado and with all of you, I cannot unsee some of these things. So I'm willing to put myself out there. I've been attacked, slandered, everything the media can do to me. Just yesterday, I got an order from the Secretary of State that she was going to invade my elections department today. And guess what? When I was on a plane to come see you kind folks and to talk to you out there, guess what they did? They provided a search warrant and raided my office.
And now she's in prison. They wanted to make sure that she went to prison as an example because she plays a pivotal role in exposing the election fraud in 2020. Listen.
Little bits of evidence of whether this election was stolen or not, it's complete misdirection. You don't need evidence if bullies chased out the witnesses.
You're not letting me in? No.
Let me say that again. Bullies chased out witnesses in the key cities.
All the Republican challengers out of this room.
So keep that fact, just as one little fact. Bullies chased out witnesses to the vote count.
Move your hand!
The majority inspector threatened to slap me in the face.
If you're telling us to leave, we will leave. Yes. Okay. Sergeant, we will leave. Okay.
Let us in. They won't let us in. Now they put cardboard over the windows.
Why don't we go?
They put cardboard over the windows?
Will you let them in? Can't.
Every fucking thing you say after that doesn't matter. All that matters is it was non-transparent by force. And if you allow yourself to imagine the other stuff matters, you're victim of misinformation and little bits of evidence of whether.
So this is not just about Tina Peters anymore. This is about whether a presidential pardon means anything at all. This is about whether states can simply ignore federal authority when it suits their political agenda. Colorado is testing the limits. They're gambling that no one will force the issue. But Trump has already fired the first shot by calling out Polis publicly. The question now is simple. Will the federal government enforce its own pardon? Or will Colorado get away with holding a political prisoner in open defiance of the President of the United States? So Tina Peters, a 68-year-old former county clerk sitting in prison for 9 years because she tried to preserve election records, not destroy them, preserve them. For that crime, Colorado threw the book at her. The judge berated her in court, called her privileged, gave her nearly a decade while actual violent criminals walked the streets. And now a sitting president has issued her a pardon, and Colorado's saying no. Think about what that means. If a state can ignore a federal pardon, then pardons are worthless. If they can keep her locked up despite presidential action, they can do it to anyone. This is the constitutional crisis that nobody in mainstream media wants to cover. Governor Polis has a choice. Release Tina Peters or face the full weight of federal enforcement. So here's my question. We can talk about it. Should federal marshals go into Colorado and free Tina Peters? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments. And support our work. Grab your next news gear in the merch shop linked in the description. All right. Moving right along. Thank you for that report, Tom. Well done out there. A couple super chats to address here. Wow, guys. Craig dropping $20. Nebraska reporting for duty. Thanks for all you do, Gary. God bless all patriots here. Merry Christmas. Present is for Tina to be home for Christmas. Amen. Let's pray for that. Do you hashtag is back. $20. Love for our champions, Gary and the N3 crew. Nice. We're at $76. We're only about $24 away from hitting our goal on this Monday. We have another report from Tom coming up outside the White House. So we're going to get into this. Excuse me. Did you hear that? I hope not. Four suspects in custody. Explosives tested and ready. A New Year's Eve massacre in Los Angeles stopped just in time. Tom McCullough has all the details on this foiled terror plot from D.C. He's outside the West Wing. And the FBI says the threat was credible and imminent. 4 individuals tied to a radical pro-Palestinian extremist group were planning coordinated bombings across the city. And while that story should dominate every headline in America, the media found something more important to cover. Blaming Donald Trump for a shooting he had nothing to do with. The deflection is breathtaking, and we're about to cut straight through it. So let's talk about what happened. The FBI announced that they disrupted a terror attack plan for New Year's Eve in Los Angeles. 4 suspects connected to an extremist group were arrested after testing bomb materials. FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed the threat was real and imminent. That's a win. That's law enforcement doing its job for once. But at the same time, the shooting at Brown University left multiple victims, and officials have provided almost nothing. No suspect details, no motive, a campus covered in cameras, and somehow there's no footage. A person of interest was arrested. The university president admitted she didn't know what happened in the classroom where the shots were fired. In Australia, 16 people murdered at a Jewish Hanukkah celebration with legally owned firearms. Gun control didn't stop it. And through all of this, Senator Chris Murphy blamed Trump's rhetoric before any facts emerged. Not the terrorists, not the shooters, Trump. And some breaking news for your health. As terror plots and security failures dominate headlines and stress runs high, your gut is taking the hit. And that's why you need Good Brew. It is the only probiotic that survives in your hot morning coffee. The co-founder who made this stuff nearly called 911 when severe acid reflux blocked his throat. Doctors wanted him on antacids for life. Instead, he discovered BC30 probiotic. Within 1 week, his reflux was gone. Every cup delivers 1 billion CFUs of beneficial bacteria plus organic fiber. No more bloating, no more heartburn, no more brain fog. So right now, Good Brew has a Christmas special. This free travel size plus 10% off with code NEXTNEWS. Survive the stress and visit goodbrew.com. That's Good Brew, GOODBRU.com. And remember to use code NEXTNEWS. So here's what makes the Brown University situation even more suspicious. Reporters pressed officials for basic answers. That's why there's no video from one of the most camera-heavy campuses in Rhode Island. The police chief said that they shared what they have. That's not an answer. That's called a dodge. CNN reported that local officials threw the FBI under the bus, blaming federal agents for a bad lead. Meanwhile, in Australia, politicians responded to 16 dead at a Jewish event by talking about celebrating diversity. The attacker used legally owned guns in a country with some of the strictest gun laws on earth. And Senator Murphy's response to all this blamed Trump before the bodies were even cold, before a single act was confirmed. Let's go to Tom McCullough now, outside the White House, our Next News White House correspondent.
The bombs. Tom McCullough, White House correspondent for the Next News Network. And today, federal authorities say they narrowly stopped a mass casualty terrorist attack planned for New Year's Eve in Southern California. According to the FBI and the Department of Justice, 4 suspects are now in federal custody after allegedly plotting to detonate improvised explosive devices at multiple locations across Los Angeles and Orange County. Officials describe the plot as credible, imminent, and extremely dangerous. Investigators say the suspects were affiliated with a far-left extremist group calling themselves the Turtle Island Liberation Front, TILF, weird name.
In November 2025, Defendant Carroll created a detailed bombing plot to use explosive devices to attack 5 or more locations across Southern California on this upcoming New Year's Eve. Carroll and her co-defendant, Zachary Page, led the effort to obtain and build the bombs and to recruit others to join in their plot. Carroll's bomb plot was explicit. It included a step-by-step instructions to build IEDs or improvised explosive devices and listed multiple targets across Orange County and Los Angeles. Carroll also made clear her desires. She said, quote, "What we are doing will be considered a terrorist act." Carroll and Page also discussed plans for follow-up attacks after their bombings, which included plans to target ICE agents and vehicles with pipe bombs. Carroll stated that those plans would, quote, "take some of them out and scare the rest."
Court documents allege the group planned to place backpack bombs at 5 major locations, including logistics and distribution centers tied to interstate commerce, with the devices set to detonate simultaneously at midnight on New Year's Eve. The suspects were arrested December 12th in a remote area of the Mojave Desert, where authorities say they were preparing to test explosive materials. Federal officials believe the arrest likely prevented significant loss of life. Attorney General Pam Bondi praised the operation, crediting coordination between the U.S. Attorney and the FBI, and warned that investigations into extremist groups will continue. FBI Director Kashaf Patel said the disrupted plot posed a real and imminent threat. According to the prosecutors, the alleged leader authored an 8-page handwritten plan titled Operation Midnight Sun. The document reportedly detailed bomb construction, listed specific targets, and openly acknowledged the plan would be considered terrorism. The group allegedly communicated through encrypted messaging apps and discussed follow-up attacks planned for early 2026, including targeting ICE and ICE vehicles. Federal agents also say material seized during the arrest included extremist slogans calling for violence against Americans. Authorities stressed this was not political speech. This was an operational terrorist plot. The group's ideology frames the United States as an illegal empire and blends far-left anti-government and anti-capitalist beliefs. Experts say the case highlights how radical activism can cross into planned violence. Public reaction has been mixed, some praising the FBI, others expressing skepticism. But the evidence laid out in court filings show a plot that came dangerously close to execution. As a result, Los Angeles officials have announced heightened security for New Year's Eve events. The suspects remain in federal custody, with more charges possible as the investigation continues. And Americans can be thankful this attack was stopped. But this case is a reminder extremism exists across ideologies, and when turns into violence, it must be confronted. Again, this is Tom McCullough reporting live from the White House. God bless. Tom McCullough.
God bless you too. Looks cold out there, Tom. Stay bundled up. Now, we're going to continue here because this is what we have from CNN. After reporting on CNN that forensic testing may have been what cleared the person of interest in the Brown University shooting, John Miller seems to be blaming the screw-up on FBI Director Kash Patel's FBI, not Providence, Rhode Island law enforcement. Of course, here we are. Blame Trump's administration.
Subject of search. What I am told by my sources is that they ran those tests, and I don't know whether that included DNA and ballistics, but whatever tests they were able to run, comparing what they found in that search to what they found at the scene, were not matches. So we go from an individual who was considered a person of interest, the subject of search warrants, both at his home in Wisconsin and his hotel here, to a person who served his country honorably in the U.S. Army in an elite unit in Washington, D.C., who is being released and must be given his presumption of innocence as we go forward.
Yeah, and to your point, Jen, picking up on some of that, as you noted, when he was pressed, they were asked specifically about some of that information. He said, look, it could be fingerprints, it could be ballistic, it could be DNA, I won't say. But there was also a specific question as to whether there were weapons found at the scene and whether they led to a person of interest. That is also a question that they would not answer. The Attorney General said, I'm not going to say, John.
Well, I think it made sense from the Attorney General's standpoint not to get into the evidence that didn't point to their suspect, just because it's not a good road for them to go down. They did, there were a couple of interesting tells there. When the police chief got up, he described, this lead came in overnight to the Providence police. So that's our lead, Providence PD. But it was handed off to the FBI, who ran with the ball. When you look at the people in that hallway where CNN got that exclusive footage, who do you see? You see FBI agents, you see U.S. Marshals, you see a lot of federal officials there. And police were very careful to subtly point out during this press conference, this was an FBI-handled lead. And, they got it once it was brought back to the station, and the involvement of the Attorney General and so on. Has there been some friction between the Providence police and the FBI today over this? I'm going to tell you there has been. Yeah. But ultimately, the determination has been made that they don't have, not only do they not have enough to hold this person, but they have multiple indicators, starting with his statement when they hit the door, in the early mornings of the hour, that I haven't.
Continuing here, we have Ella Cook, 19 years old, conservative Christian, vice president of the Republican Club, Brown University. She was killed by a shooter in a targeted political attack. So sad. 19 years old. CNN on the Brown shooting. I've never seen a local jurisdiction essentially throw the FBI under the bus. Not just saying we're in charge, but saying, look, that lead led us to a person of interest who ended up not being the person of interest. The suspect in the Brown University shooting being released. This is the press conference from that moment. Brown University President Christina Paxson says after 6 hours, she still doesn't know what went on in the engineering and physics building classroom.
And you said you don't.
DC when it happened and flew right back, and I'm catching up right now.
President, with all due respect, 6 hours after this shooting, and you said you don't know what was going on in that classroom? How does that happen? Were they taking an exam? Were they meeting for a club?
I don't know. I don't know.
6 hours later, and you're the president, and you don't know?
I do not know.
Well, that's kind of concerning.
Yeah, that is concerning. How could she not know? Providence authorities refusing to release any information about the suspect in custody who had been released. Let's see. Chris Murphy blaming the shooting on Trump.
We did a little bit a few years ago, but of me and flag laws, but the laws.
We have gun violence rates, murder rates, mass shooting rates that are 2 to 3 to 4 times lower than states that have loose gun laws. And many of the weapons that are used in our states for gun crimes come to our states from those states that have an ability for criminals and people with serious mental illness to buy weapons. So what we know is that stronger laws do work. And since we passed that bill in 2022, the first bill in 30 years that strengthens the nation's gun laws, gun violence rates and mass shooting rates have come down in this country. But this is not shocking because over the last year, President Trump has been engaged in a dizzying campaign to increase violence in this country. He is restoring gun rights to felons and people who have lost their ability to buy guns. He eliminated the White House Office of Gun Violence Protection, and he has stopped funding mental health grants and community anti-gun violence grants that Republicans and Democrats supported in that 2022 bill. So he has been engaged in a pretty deliberate campaign to try to make violence more likely in this country. And I think you're unfortunately going to see the results of that on the streets of America.
That's all Trump's fault. The nerve of these people. Trump's rhetoric. Here's the president. This is 48 hours ago. He probably knows more than the president of the university.
I've been fully briefed on the Brown University situation. What a terrible thing it is. And all we can do right now is pray for the victims and for those that were very badly hurt, it looks like. And we'll inform you later as to what's happening. But it's a shame. It's a shame. So just pray. Thank you very much.
Pray. That's all you can do. Here is the Brown University FBI response. And then we have this in Australia. Horrific video coming out from international press. NBC correspondent Sarah James in Australia reporting on the Hanukkah massacre.
Leader here, who's some here asking how the alleged gunmen amassed an arsenal in a country famous for strict gun control. Australia's Prime Minister today says laws may need to be even tougher and that more will need to be done to help the nation's Jewish community. A prominent Jewish leader here, whose friend died in the attack, says his community has been warning the government of a dangerous rise in anti-Semitism.
I can't imagine a time when the Jewish community would feel safe without looking over their shoulders.
Yeah. The gun laws are so strict in Australia. But yet, this all still happened, right? The mother of one of the terror attack shooters at Bondi Beach, Australia, came out and called her son a good boy.
On the terror watch list. So the mother of one of the terrorist attack shooters has come out and called her son, quote, a good boy, saying that he didn't drink or smoke, went to work and came home and didn't really have friends. Now, let me just say this. If your son has been on the terror watch list since 2019, don't fucking act shocked, and don't call him a good boy when he comes out and shoots 16 civilians dead. So the mother of one of the terrorist attack shooters...
Unbelievable. An Islamic scholar in Sydney, Australia.
Of our deen. We can't take away from the fact, first and foremost, that jihad is definitely part of our deen. And as Muslims, we should never ever shy away from this. And yes, there may be types of jihad, but of the peak of this jihad is that which the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ spoke about, and I'll read the hadith soon. And that is fighting in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. A physical fight, not the fighting of the nafs. Although your nafs is needed in order for your physical to go out in the path of Allah. So we're not talking about the struggle of the nafs, we're talking about the physical jihad, the physical struggling against the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to make the word of Allah Azza wa Jal the highest.
So that's an official statement from an imam in Australia. And then you see these types of attacks unfold. The president, 24 hours ago, addresses the weekend loss of life regarding Brown in Australia.
University. Before we begin, however, I want to just pay my respects to the people. Unfortunately, 2 are no longer with us. Brown University, 9 injured, and 2 are looking down on us right now from heaven. And likewise in Australia, as you know, that was a terrible attack, 11 dead, 29 badly wounded. And that was an anti-Semitic attack, obviously. And I just want to pay my respects to everybody. I must say in Syria also, we had an attack in Syria. And we had 3 great patriots terminated by bad people. And not the Syrian government, it was ISIS. Syrian government fought by our side. The new president fought by our side. But I just want to pay my respects to the families. We also had 3 injured, but 2 of them are already out of the hospital, and 1's going to be okay. But we lost 3, so it was a rough day. But to Australia and the Prime Minister, to everybody that we know so well, we get along with so well, we have a great relationship. That's a terrible situation going on over there. Think of that. And Brown University, great school, great, really one of the greatest schools anywhere in the world. Things can happen. So to the 9 injured, get well fast, and to the families of those 2 that are no longer with us, I pay my deepest regards and respects from the United States of America. Thank you very much. It's a very important thing to say, and we mean it. I can tell you in Syria, there will be a lot of damage done to the people that did it. They got the individual person, but there'll be big damage done. And the other, supposedly, they call him a person of interest, so I'll keep it along those lines so we don't get ourselves in any trouble, but they have a person of interest at Brown. And in Australia, you probably read it's been a very, very brave person, actually, who went and attacked frontally one of the shooters and saved a lot of lives. So very brave person who's right now in the hospital, pretty seriously wounded. So great respect to that man that did that. But we're here for a different reason. We're here to celebrate Christmas and to celebrate, and I think today we can say loudly, we celebrate Hanukkah. Before we begin, however, I want to...
So you saw, Tom McCullough confirmed from Washington, D.C., FBI Director Kash Patel stopped a coordinated bombing in Los Angeles. 4 suspects in custody, explosives tested, a New Year's Eve massacre prevented. That's the story America should be talking about. But instead of celebrating a win for law enforcement, the media pivoted to gun control and Trump blame. They don't want you focused on the terror threat that was stopped. They want you angry at the man who wasn't anywhere near any of these events. That tells you everything about where their priorities really are. So in the span of days, America witnessed a university shooting, shrouded in secrecy, a terror plot stopped cold by the FBI, and a massacre overseas that gun control couldn't prevent. And the response from the left blamed Trump. Not the terrorists, not the shooters, not the ideology, and not the local officials who couldn't answer basic questions about the campus attack. Blame Donald Trump. That's their answer for everything. Meanwhile, Kash Patel and the FBI actually did their job. They stopped 4 radicals from bombing Los Angeles on New Year's Eve. That's a huge win. That deserves big headlines. But it doesn't fit the narrative, so it just gets buried. And that's why we're telling it to you. The American people see the pattern. They see the deflection. They're tired of being told that political rhetoric is more dangerous than actual bombs and actual terrorists. So my question for you, should the media be held accountable for burying real terror threats? Yes or no? Sound off in the comments and support our show at our merch shop. You'll find it linked in the description. All right, some super chats have come through here. Do you hashtag is back? Fear not the darkness. The Lord is our light. Amen. And he came back again with another 10. And he said, answer, give everyone the light, give everyone the right to fight back. And he came back again with another $5. Nice. An armed society is a polite society. And that brings us to $125 tonight. Wow. Imagine if we hit a 200. You don't want to know what happens when that happens. Okay. We're going to go into some territory that I think you might enjoy right now. What if the most famous shipwreck in history was not an accident? What if it was a hit? In 1912, the Titanic went down carrying 3 of the wealthiest men in America. Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus, and John Jacob Astor. All 3 opposed the creation of a central bank. All 3 died that night. And the man who financed the ship? J.P. Morgan. He canceled his trip at the last minute. 8 months later, the Federal Reserve was born. You see, they told you it was an iceberg, but what if it was something else entirely? Now, let's be clear about what we're discussing here. This is a theory, of course, it's unproven, it's speculative, but it's a theory that refuses to die because the facts are just strange enough to make you wonder. Guggenheim, Strauss, and Astor were titans of industry. Their fortunes didn't come from banking, and according to this theory, they stood firmly against the creation of a privately controlled central bank in the United States. When the Titanic sank, so did their opposition. J.P. Morgan, whose financial interests aligned perfectly with central banking, had a luxury suite booked on that ship. He didn't board. Some say he was at Jekyll Island instead, where banking elites had secretly drafted the blueprint for what would become the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve Act passed in December of 1913, during Christmas, when Congress was distracted and the public wasn't watching. Coincidence? Maybe. But a lot of people, they're not buying it anymore. And some breaking news for your health, as we expose how powerful institutions have shaped history behind closed doors, it's time you take control of what you can, your own body. And that's why I'm telling you about red light therapy from myredlight.com. I just had a 30-minute session today in the comfort of my own home. See, after Jonathan Otto introduced me to this technology, my wife and I experienced results we didn't think possible. Her chronic pain and anxiety gone, my energy recovery better than guys half my age. Major medical journals show 300% faster healing and pain elimination in minutes. NASA researched it. FDA cleared it. Right now, you can get hospital-grade panels with 0 EMF exposure for your home. Visit myredlight.com and use code NNN for the best deal available. That's myredlight.com, code NNN. Your body will thank you. Now let's get deeper into that theory. In 1910, Senator Nelson Aldrich gathered a group of bankers and financiers for a secret meeting on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia. I personally have been there. I've dined with G. Edward Griffin in the very room where they crafted their scheme. You see, when they went there, they only used first names. They told people they were on a duck hunting trip. What they were actually doing was drafting the framework for America's central bank. The book that opened this rabbit hole for millions is called The Creature from Jekyll Island by the man himself, the great G. Edward Griffin. And it documents how the Federal Reserve isn't really federal at all. It's a privately influenced system with enormous power over money creation, interest rates, and credit. And President Trump himself just called Jerome Powell incompetent and said he wants someone who will lower rates. Even now, the Fed remains at the center of the fight. But what is the conspiracy behind it all? Let's dive in.
Have you heard the theory of the Titanic and the Federal Reserve? Well, here it goes. So on the Titanic, there's some extremely wealthy passengers like J.P. Morgan, John Rockefeller, and the Rothschilds. But then you have Jacob Astor, the wealthiest man in the world at the time. He owned about 40% of all mortgages, and he was a Freemason who was very opposed to the idea of a central bank. Whereas J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, and Rothschild strongly supported the idea of a central bank. So Jacob Astor was the only one standing in the way of a central bank at the time. Coincidentally, the morning the Titanic was supposed to set sail, J.P. Morgan, some Rothschilds, and others quietly exited the ship without any explanation. 5 days later, Titanic slams into an iceberg and it starts to sink. And even though Jacob Astor is the wealthiest man in the world, he still can't find a seat in a lifeboat, and he ends up sinking with the ship. Shortly after, these guys become the wealthiest men in the world, and without Jacob Astor standing in their way, the next year in 1913, on Jekyll Island in Georgia, the Federal Reserve Act was signed into law, paving the way to print money out of thin air and completely control our monetary system. Was this a coincidence or a conspiracy?
Coincidence or conspiracy? Benjamin Guggenheim, Isa Strauss, Jacob Astor, all three men who opposed the Federal Reserve died during the sinking of the Titanic. The Federal Reserve was installed in December of 1913. The sinking was an inside job, they say, to kill a few rich men that opposed the Federal Reserve Act from passing. The next year, it passed during Christmas as people were celebrating. The Federal Reserve Act, signed into law by Woodrow Wilson, started operation in 1914. Titanic sinks. 1,517 perish after the RMS Titanic hits an iceberg, mostly women and children saved. The Titanic sank to fund the Federal Reserve. Here's another take.
Sank because one of the most outlandish but most interesting theories on the Titanic is that it sank because they were using it to melt down cars and bedposts and all sorts of mundane objects that were made out of actual gold and then painted to look like they were normal. And they were using this to then fund the Federal Reserve. If you do want to start a Federal Reserve, you know what else you need is you need a whole bunch of money to back that thing. And at this point, the only reliable money you could back something with would have been gold. The Titanic sank because they were smelting gold near the hull, which compromised the integrity of the hull of the ship. And then when they brought it into these freezing waters, it was to counteract the fact that these engine rooms were just burning and smelting gold nonstop for days and days. And the excuse about the life rafts being gone, or maybe the escape boats were used to get all of the smelted gold off the ship and over onto shore. One of the most outlandish but most interesting theories on the Titanic.
That's a new one. I'd never heard that one before. Smelting gold on the Titanic. Another says, a hit job.
People in the world
The Titanic was actually a hit job.
What? Really?
Yeah, so basically what happened was all the richest people in the world in 1912 were supposed to be on this ship. You had the Rothschilds and their basically lackeys at that time who were called J.P. Morgan. And all of these guys are supposed to be on this ship, but there's also another guy who was on that ship. His name was Mr. Uster. He was the richest man in America at that time. He owned 40% of every mortgage in America. Imagine. Damn. This guy's a gangster. I'm not saying he's a good guy. This guy was in the way of the Federal Reserve. They wanted to create a central bank, the Rothschilds. They can't just take someone out of that importance. They made this big deal, everyone going on the ship, and then in the last seconds, all the Rothschilds people exited the ship. Like right before it was about to take off, the ship sunk. All of a sudden, the richest guy in America died on the ship, and all of a sudden, all the politicians who he was basically bribing, all that money evaporated. So they went all to the Rothschild side, and then next year, 1913, they started the Federal Reserve Bank because there was no more opposition to it. Okay, these are criminals. They got away with it, so it is what it is. I mean,
yeah. And now look where we're at. Look at how much control the Federal Reserve has. Was the Titanic sunk to pave the way for the Fed? J.P. Morgan was supposed to be on it. 3 of the wealthiest Americans in the world. In America at the time, none whose wealth came from banking, all opposed a central bank, passed away on the maiden voyage of the Titanic. The Federal Reserve was established the following year. J.P. Morgan funded the building of the Titanic and canceled its journey just before hours of departure.
They built a ship of death called the Titanic.
The sinking of the Titanic was a design of the Jesuit order to get rid of the opposition to the creation of a central bank in the United States.
And the men on the Titanic were opposed to a central bank. They had to die. Among those were John Jacob Astor, Isidor Straus, Benjamin Guggenheim, and a host of other millionaires who were opposed to a central bank in America. Therefore, they had to be taken out of the way. And they were on the Titanic.
The company building the ship was owned by J.P. Morgan, who was himself an agent of the Rothschilds family. The Rothschilds being the bankers for the Pope and the Vatican. The main Jesuit targets were brought on board. The captain of the ship was Edward John Smith. It appears from his actions that Captain Smith was a Jesuit coadjutor, that is, a Jesuit who has taken the oath but does not wear the robes. A coadjutor blends into the scenery and never looks like a Jesuit priest. It is a veteran sea captain, Edward Smith, who orders the ship to travel through an 80-square-mile ice field at full speed on a moonless night. There had been over 8 telegrams warning the captain of the danger.
He's warned 8 times, slow the ship down, slow the Titanic down, you're going too fast. Not once stopped. Knew there was an iceberg field up ahead, knew that he should have slowed down, but didn't. And so you look and you say, how was it that this man could go headlong into a field of icebergs and not slow the ship down, not be more careful? The only conclusion you can draw is, as a coadjutor of the Jesuit order, right through the line, the chain of command, he was told, sink the ship.
They built a ship of death.
Ship intentionally sank. What do you guys think? I've heard this theory for years. I mean, it's all over right now. People talking about it again. But let's go to our great president, speaking of the Fed and its demise, because Jerome Powell is the iceberg right now. Okay? He's the iceberg that America is barreling towards. And we've hit it. And we're sinking because of Jerome Powell. We need to remove the iceberg so that we can get these Federal Reserve rates down. But better yet, just remove the Federal Reserve completely. End the Fed has always been my motto. Let's go to the great president and hear his remarks.
I'll be picking a new head of the Fed soon. Our Fed person is absolutely Despite him, we have numbers that really nobody's ever seen, Vince, right? Despite him, we have numbers that nobody's ever seen before. We're fighting through him. And we'll soon have a good head of the Fed who's going to want to see interest rates go down. Amen. But we're fighting through higher interest rates. But the interest rates are coming down despite him. He's an incompetent person who suffers from Trump derangement syndrome, okay? It's one of those little problems. We have many of them. But we're fighting through that stuff.
We're fighting through it. So here's what you need to understand. Whether you believe the theory or not, the Federal Reserve was created in secrecy. It was passed when nobody was paying attention, and it has controlled the American economy ever since. Every recession, every inflation crisis, every boom, every bust, the Fed is there pulling the levers. And most Americans don't even know it's not actually part of the government. The Titanic story forces you to ask a forbidden question. What did it cost to create this system, and who paid the price? Look, I'm not telling you this theory is a proven fact. It's not. Historians will dispute it. Official records blame an iceberg and human error. No court has ever confirmed foul play. But here's why the story won't die. 3 of the richest opponents of central banking boarded that ship, all 3 dead. The man who financed it canceled at the last second. And 18 months later, the Federal Reserve was born during Christmas when America wasn't watching. That's a whole lot of coincidences. The Fed now controls inflation, interest rates, and the economic destiny of 300 million Americans. It was created in secret on Jekyll Island by bankers who didn't want you to know their names. And over a century later, we're still asking who really benefits. So here's my question. Do you believe that Titanic was an accident or part of something bigger? Yes or no? Let's have a conversation in the comments. And while you're there, grab some gear at the Next News merch shop. You'll find it linked in the description. Look at this. Do you hashtag? Are you serious? $100? We will not go quietly into the night. We will act with swiftness, the kind that only desperation can bring when that day comes. They should fear what it really means to be human. They live in their penthouses and estates. They think bunkers. I think real people's ingenuity. That puts us at, holy cow, $235 in Super Chats. Merry Christmas. Okay, Brian, you know what that means, right? It's time for the YMCA. Come on and take it to the YMCA. You can get a good meal. You can get yourself clean. You can do whatever you feel. All right, man. A big round of applause for Gary doing the Trump dance the best way he can. But especially to all you guys in the Super Chats tonight. Wow, $235. Angie is going to be so pleased. Wow. So that's where we're at, America. On this day in 1791, our founders ratified the Bill of Rights. 10 amendments to protect the people from the very government they had just created. Freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, protection from unreasonable searches, the right to a fair trial. They knew that power corrupts. They knew that those in charge would always try to silence, disarm, and control the people beneath them. So they wrote it down. They made it law. And they trusted us to defend it. 234 years later, look where we are. Hollywood's legendary Trump hater and his wife murdered in their home. Before the investigation even begins, the political machine turns tragedy into weapon. Rob Reiner spent years attacking Trump and MAGA. We didn't agree with a single word he said, but he did not deserve to die like that. And his death doesn't deserve to be exploited by people who care more about narrative than truth. In Minnesota, billions of dollars have allegedly been stolen from programs meant to help the poor and the sick. And when the spotlight hits Governor Walz, he blames Trump. Ilhan Omar cries persecution. And then there's that internal memo suggesting enforcement was deliberately sabotaged to protect political power. Equal justice under the law? Not in Minnesota. Not if you got the right connections. And then Thomas McCullough, our White House correspondent, bearing the bitter swamp winter, reporting from D.C. on two stories that should shake every American. And Do You hashtags back with a 5 spot. Thank you so much. He just keeps throwing it in. We paid the price. The two stories, Tina Peters sitting in a Colorado prison cell despite a presidential pardon because Governor Polis would rather defy federal authority than release a grandmother who preserved election evidence. And the FBI just stopped a New Year's Eve terror attack in Los Angeles. 4 suspects, bombs ready, a massacre prevented. But the media would rather talk about Trump's tweets than the terrorists who wanted to kill Americans. And then there's a story that never dies, the Titanic. 3 of the richest opponents of central banking board a ship. All 3 die. The man who financed it cancels at the last moment. 18 months later, the Federal Reserve is born in secret during Christmas. Coincidence? You decide. But the questions remain, and the Fed still controls our economic destiny over a century later. So on Bill of Rights Day, we are reminded that freedom is not free. It has to be defended. It has to be fought for. Every single generation faces the same choice: submit or resist, comply or question, trust the official story or dig for the truth. So thank you to everyone who sent in super chats tonight. Do You hashtag coming back with another $3. Holy cow. $243 tonight. Thank you guys. You guys keep this show alive. So keep telling your friends about the raw feed. Hit our merch shop in the description, and remember, they do not want you to see any of this. That's exactly why we show it to you. This is Gary Franchi. This has been the Raw Feed, and we'll see you at the next show.